The next page, actually, I'd make a note here. Page 34 and 35 is for a tandem truck. Page 34 and 35 is for a tandem truck. This is the hoist, all the parts for the hoist, and those little dark circles over there on page 34 tells you where those lubrication points are for the hoist. Now, that being said, over the past few years, and I think it's kind of come to full fruition now, is that we've had a project going on where we're getting away from the driving grease fittings and going with threaded grease fittings. Hallelujah. Been wanting to do that for a long time. So we are getting away from the driving grease fittings and going with the threaded. But if you do have some trucks with the driving grease fitting, we still have those available if you need them. But we are transitioning quickly. If it's not happened yet, it's probably at 90% at this point that all of our grease fittings have transitioned over to threaded grease fittings now. So I know that's something that you guys have been asking for quite a while, and it's happening now. We're almost through with that project. All right, so that's 34 and 35. Page 36 and 37, that would be for a single axle truck. 36 and 37 will be for a single axle. And same thing again, look like a little hourglass in a circle there that shows you the lubrication points for that hoist. And that's another thing too, is while you're there greasing that tarp, make sure you're greasing that hoist, greasing that chassis. There's quite a few grease fittings on one of these things. And I know trucks don't have as many, the chassis don't have as many grease fittings as they used to on it, which is good and bad, I guess. But we still have those grease fittings there. We like grease. Grease is our friend. I'll tell you what I'd rather do. If I'm in the shop working on something, I'd rather have grease up to my elbows and be grimy, as greasy as all get out, than to have this old dry, chalky steel that's getting in your hands and all rusty stuff and all this stuff. I'd much rather work on something greasy than something dry and all these steel splinters and stuff getting in your hands a mess. So next page is going to be 38, which is this is a plumbing diagram for the joystick and the rocker switch console system. So if I made any kind of a note there at the top of the page, it would be joystick and rocker switch console, because that would be the plumbing diagram for that, the hydraulic valve that we use for it, the unloader valve and stuff like that. If a truck gets in an accident and knocks some hydraulic lines off, this will be a good page for you to go to figure out what line went where. And in the bottom, over on the right-hand side, about halfway, it shows you the bottom of the manifold and the porting that's there. We do have that in another place too. I'll show you later. Page 39 is our gear pump. Page 39 at the gear pump. One thing I can tell you is on one of these snow trucks is the one at the top of the page, P21. You do not have that one. Draw an X through that first one there, that one in the upper left-hand corner. Draw your X through it, you don't have it. The P21, now as a rule of thumb, it's not 100% now, but what I'm getting you probably is going to be about 80%. The P22 pump typically fits a single axle truck. P22 typically fits a single axle truck. I'll explain all this to you in just a minute. But a P23 typically fits a tandem truck. Now, understand it's 80% accurate. And here's the reason why, is when an engine is maxed out, we're looking for a certain flow of hydraulic oil, and roughly 30, 35 gallons a minute, something like that. And with the single axle trucks, you have a smaller engine that turns higher RPM, somewhere around 2600 on the earlier engines. So we put a smaller pump on it to give us the same amount of flow or the accurate amount of flow when the engine's maxed out. Now the P23 pump, that typically goes on a tandem truck because the tandem usually only turns 19 to 2100 RPM. And by having a truck like that, we got to get a little bit more flow out of it. So we use the next larger size pump to be able to do that. The goal is to optimize it and have the right amount of flow at the top end of the RPM to be able to handle these valves and stuff. And that's why we use two different pumps. P22 typically goes on a single axle, P23 typically goes on a tandem, but it's all dependent upon the engine RPM. as to which one it is. And you can take measurements. If you've got a pump and you need to replace or something, just take these basic measurements here and you can find out which one it is you've got, which one you need. Actually, there's a number over here to the side. 308 9110 088. That will be on a tag, metal tag that will be on the pump itself.